This is a story I think we're all familiar with. You're trying to get something done, you are trying to focus, and then boom, something pops up to distract you. It takes you away from that task, and you're not able to get it done when you thought you would. Actually, this episode was inspired by the fact that I was trying to put together some outlines on my couch, just a normal, probably Monday morning for me. And I was trying to plan some videos, and my dog kept coming up to me and needing my attention. Now, there are two ways I can see that distraction. One is as a distraction that is keeping me from the task that I'm trying to do, which it totally was. But the other option was that I could see it as a blessing. I love my dog. She brings so much joy to my life. And even though the fact that she, wants snacks and wants to go outside and wants belly rubs is definitely making me get through my task slower, the fact that she's even there is a big plus in my book. So while cutting out all distractions may be the key to getting things done, a life without distractions is not a very well-lived life necessarily. Without distractions, you don't have breaks for connection or for inspiration. Some distractions are not like that. Some distractions are just something that you want to do away with as much as possible. But others are kind of blessings in disguise. And so for this video, we're not going to be talking so much about eliminating distractions, although that is a really helpful skill to have in some situations. We are going to be talking about how to figure out whether or not the thing that is distracting you needs to stay. Because honestly, we live in a world that has so many distractions, from social media to marketing messages to just the noise and the chatter that we live with on a daily basis. There is so much going on, and it is really hard to focus. So how do we decide which distractions to keep and which ones to get rid of without losing our minds in the process? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. And I should note here before I get too deeply into it, I am not talking about distractions from an ADHD or other neurodivergent perspective. And I do think that if we talk about distractions, hearing from those voices is really important. So if you know of any resources on this that I could read or just educate myself better, I would love to hear about it. It's not something that I'm personally qualified to speak to, but I do think that that's really important. To be honest, I struggle with anxiety, and a lot of times if I listen to the advice that ADHD people give for planning and focusing and stuff, there's a lot of really good stuff in there that I can use too and I can learn from. So all that to say, if you know someone who has resources on this from an ADHD perspective, let me know. I would love to, first of all, watch it myself, and second of all, link to it in the description here below. So please leave that in the comments if you know of anybody. All right, all of that being said, for me, I think distractions tend to fall into three categories. The first is totally unhelpful. These are distractions that are just not going to be good. The second is helpful, but not right now. These are the things that I think are probably the trickiest to navigate because they're distractions that are potentially good things in and of themselves or good things in the right context, but considering what you're trying to do or what's going on in your life right now, they're really not helpful. And the third category of distractions is what I like to call necessary distractions. These are the things that you actually want in your life right now because they're going to help you be happier, get your task done better in the long term, whatever. And I will say that I feel like these distractions exist on a little bit of a continuum, and they kind of move around on that with some exceptions, right? Your house being on fire is always going to be a necessary distraction from what you are working on. You need to know that that's on fire and get out. But most of the things that distract us on a daily basis, it really depends on the context which category these fall into. So let's take the idea of texting with a friend as an example. If you are trying to do deep work, for me that would be, writing a whole bunch of words or, doing some editing. I'm trying to do deep work and I think of something that I need to text a friend, or I see a notification pop up on my phone, that is a totally unhelpful distraction. I'm trying to do deep work and that thing is distracting me at that moment. And if I can just put my head down, get my work done, get in that flow state, I'm going to be much happier and better able to interact socially later. But if I given to the distraction and respond to it. Now, I'm probably just going to be frustrated, both with the work that I'm getting done and myself, and also probably with my friend, even though my friend had no idea what I was working on and was just texting me, right? But what if like I'm working on that same project and maybe I have a question that this friend could help me with, right? So I pull out my phone, but here's what happens when I pull out my phone is that I don't necessarily go exactly to the app that I first intended to use when I pulled out my phone. And I don't know if you do this too, but like a lot of times I will think, okay, I need to pull out my phone for like this very specific purpose. And I, unlock my phone, I start to scroll through my apps, and the next thing I know, I'm on Instagram, or I'm on Twitter, or I'm checking my email, or I'm doing something that I am not supposed to be doing. It's not the thing that I pulled my phone out for in that moment. And then 15 minutes later, I'm like waking up out of like this fog, this haze, and I'm like, wait, I never even did the thing that I pulled my phone out. And now I really, really need to get back to my work or to my original task. So in that specific case, thinking of something that I need to ask a friend while I'm trying to do my deep work, probably a helpful distraction, but not right now. So it'd be better for me to make a note to myself to text them once I'm done with the task and do what I can without their input, instead of texting them right in the middle and then getting distracted by my phone for a long time. However, if I am not doing deep work, if I am just trying to do some, catch up admin tasks, or I'm, checking my email, or if I'm dealing with something that is actually kind of frustrating to me and I'm not able to get into that flow state, then texting a friend actually could be a really welcome distraction. It could make me laugh. It could bring some joy into my life, because texting people that I care about does bring me joy. And I may be able to ask for advice or just get reassurance that I'm not crazy or I can do it or whatever. And so that's an example of a task that, depending on what you are working on or like what the situation is, can fall into any of these three categories. And I think that's helpful to keep in mind, so that you don't just like make rules about like, oh, like texting a friend is always a bad thing. It may not be, especially depending on what you are working on. Really, the point that I'm getting at here is that the type of distraction that you're dealing with really depends on the context of what else is going on around that distraction. So instead of just making rules about particular types of distractions, I think it's actually more helpful to understand the kind of task you're working on and think through what kinds of distractions are probably going to come into play here. For some of the things you do in your life, distractions are going to be totally unhelpful, like pretty much all distractions. For others of those things, there will be a lot of helpful, but not right nows. But then for other tasks that you are doing, there are some distractions, or maybe a lot of distractions, that are going to be necessary in order to help you get through that task. I think that most of us are pretty good at recognizing when distractions are not going to be helpful. So I wanted to give like a few examples of ways that distractions might be necessary for you. The first is like if you have writer's block. And I'm sorry that all my examples are writing related, but I do feel like it's something that a lot of us have to do as part of our jobs. We write emails specifically, or like messages to coworkers on Slack or whatever. I am a writer, so I also write, like blog posts, articles, emails, like that go out to public, like things like that, as part of my job. And so a lot of the examples are writing related, but what those things are that often like come up and block you from doing your work, or even your best work in your job or in your life. So just when you hear writing, if that's not something that you do, just take that and go, okay, I can relate that to, when I make art, or I can relate that to, coming up with a new idea for my business. So if you have writer's block, sometimes you need this necessary distraction of like walking around the block, or taking a shower, or doing something that totally disengages your brain from the problem that you're trying to work on, because otherwise your brain is just not going to do it. But if you disengage just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a lot of times you can come up with an idea that will inspire you and give you that fresh wave of enthusiasm for the work that you're trying to do. I've done this to myself on accident so many times that I've started to do it intentionally when I run into problems. If you're feeling stressed about a project at work, you may need to, like on your break, just relax and laugh with a colleague about something totally unrelated, because letting some of that stress out is going to help you have a clearer mind when you have to go back to that problem. If you're having difficulty solving a problem, sometimes it helps to take a break from it and come back to it with fresh eyes. All of these are examples of necessary distractions. Ultimately, you are the best judge of whether or not a distraction is a good idea for you at the moment. But my point with this video is I want to encourage you to think of distractions not necessarily as just all bad all the time. They are obstacles to getting things done for sure, but as Ryan Holiday famously says, sometimes the obstacle is the way. Okay, so before I wrap things up, I just wanted to leave you with this one thought. When you are trying to get something done and a distraction pops up, instead of just automatically assuming that the distraction is bad or could not be helpful in any way, I want you to take a minute and think about the kind of task that you're trying to complete. And I want you to think about, is this the kind of task where all distractions are going to be totally unhelpful? I need to be totally focused. I need to be in flow. Is this the kind of task where actually it's more creative and it's a little less linear, and distractions are going to be helpful in order to help me get to that focused state? Or is it somewhere in the middle where it's something that isn't super important? And so sometimes, having a distraction while being annoying, it may be helpful, but not right now. Or it maybe isn't necessary, but it's not as urgently not necessary as when you're doing your most important work. I just want you to kind of think about the kind of task it is before you assess whether or not the distraction is going to be good for you at this point, at this moment in your life. I know this is a way that most of us aren't used to thinking of distractions, and it's a way that I'm not used to either, to be totally honest with you, but the times I've been able to do it, it's really helped me feel less guilty about the times when I too get distracted by things that are important. And it's also really helped me to reframe my focus and have a much more positive outlook about my life, because I'm not focused so much on trying to control my time and how I get things done, but instead I am able to take things a little bit more in stride and go, okay, you know what? Actually, for this task, distractions are sometimes necessary because of the nature of the work that I'm doing, or because of the nature of the thing that is distracting me. So I hope that helps, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye!